What is up, everybody? Welcome to the NumberBet Matchups podcast, where we go through using the SuperContest lines and talk about the sides that we like, the sides that our models suggest that we take, and we try to figure out, hey, are we going to listen to our model this week? Sometimes listening to the model works, sometimes it doesn't, but there definitely is a human element to handicapping and being successful at it. I've been trying to kind of separate the two lately and say, okay, here's my base, what my base model projection is, and then here's the human element, which you have something similar to that as well. You've mentioned that before, but make sure that I understand as I'm reading the model, this is what the base says, this is what the numbers say, and then this is something that's a little more subjective that you think might matter, but that isn't mathematically proven or anything, or based strictly on the numbers. Yeah, you want to get that like all working together so that you know how to combine the two and make them all work and develop your opinion. So maybe talk, Milo, as we get started here, a little bit of that strategy and how much of the human element you think plays a part of handicapping and along with your model.
Well, I mean, even the best models are not hitting at a fantastically high percentage. If you could, those people would just print money and basically retire and do nothing else. But the model alone doesn't account for, even if you can have a metric for it, for the situation, the injuries, the motivation, the coaching change, the scheme change, how often that has changed, when it has changed, how things have adapted and kind of altered over the past couple weeks. If you are, part of Team Watch the Games, that not a lot of people are. Some people just look at numbers. Some people are box score readers and think they can figure it all out from there. There is an element to both those things where you can combine them and kind of have a sweet spot of doing well and, making money and picking games correctly. But it is not easy. We do have a metric in ours that is specifically almost like a hand-drawn number, that you will, that affects things a slight amount, and it can be adjusted on a week-to-week or game-to-game basis per situation where, like you said, you can plug in all the numbers you want, but if the quarterback situation is all of a sudden two quarterbacks are out, or maybe in the case of the Denver Broncos a couple weeks ago, every quarterback's out, you can make alterations and kind of see what it shoots out. But kind of like you said, you have like a governor on it. We kind of have some limits built in, so it doesn't have, I don't want to have too much of an effect with my human element, but also want to have enough that, in my case, if I can keep it out of an auto bet category and keep it into a regular bet as opposed to an auto bet because of some hand adjustments, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think that's an important distinction too, is that the math, the numbers should be driving the majority of it. The base, that should be, I don't want to put a number on it, but if I had to be like, all right, 80% or something, like at least 80% has got to be the base. And then there's some subjectivity in there. And that might be pretty loose, but there's nothing wrong with finding a way to incorporate things that you have an opinion on that you haven't been able to prove yet, whether it be some sort of element where, okay, so like there are all these narratives where, all right, this team is traveling west or east after a bye on a
1 p.m. West Coast team, early start. Yeah.
And it's like, in general, I hate trends like that because most trends are just absolute noise, and they really mislead people because, yeah, it's 100% confirmation bias. It's like, oh, look, I found this trend that makes sense, right? And it's like, oh, this team must be better than we think because of this stupid trend that's just a bunch of random things thrown together, essentially. But there are some that make sense and some that you can go, okay, well, like obviously it does have some sort of impact. What is that impact? And there are things you decide that, well, this means more than this, and this is just crazy noise, and you've got to have a way to factor that all in there. But let's apply that to the slate that we've got this week, which is starting to get fun. We've got the Saturday night, or the Saturday all day, essentially, games going on, and that's my favorite part of the season. We're playing football Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then as we talked about before going live here, we got basketball right after that as well on Tuesday. this is just going to be one of the best sports weeks of 2020, don't you think?
I couldn't be more excited. I think I even said in our Slack chat that DraftKings has a millionaire maker Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and on Christmas Day. And I'm like, let's go. Like this is if you're a DFS player, you're a sports bettor, you're just even a sports fan, this is right up your alley. And now that sports betting is legal in a few more states, and they continue to add more and more, this is everything you could possibly want. You have an opportunity to make any game interesting. But here we are to tell you that maybe you shouldn't be doing that, and you should be doing this with a smarter and maybe a more sophisticated look as to how you can break down and kind of make some money on some of these games.
Well, let's talk about the first game. Let's talk about the Raiders and Chargers. Raiders are at home, and they're 3-point favorites. The Chargers, the shine is kind of worn off of them, and it really hit its peak last week. I'm not sure if you caught the play at the end of that first half where oh my goodness, they couldn't even get the field goal unit on the field to kick a field goal. They couldn't decide if they were going to kick the field goal. Even Justin Herbert is like, this isn't going to work. Like, he's not even really running off the field because he knows there's no way that they can get this done in time. He's like, are you kidding me? You're an idiot. And like, that's where we're at right now at the Chargers. The public is certainly seeing these things and is aware of these things. They're like, oh man, the Chargers suck because of this, right? So is that too much bias because of all of this and what's thrown here? Obviously, the last few weeks, this is exactly what I'm talking about when I'm not betting the Chargers. It's just Anthony Lynn. It's been 2 words for me, right? But where do you stand on the Chargers right now?
Oh my God, this entire game is so bad. The Chargers clearly are trending downward. It's almost like whenever they succeed, it's in spite of their coach. Conversely, on the other side of it, the Raiders, I was on the Raiders last week, I must confess. It was a great spot. I thought they could do well. It seemed competitive. A one-handed interception in the end zone, and the Raiders fall apart, and Jonathan Taylor ran for 125 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Raiders have now looked awful 3 consecutive games after losing to Kansas City. And this seems, again, like a spot where you're looking at this and you're like, how are the Raiders giving points to anyone? They've looked horrendous 3 weeks in a row. They're trending backwards. And I don't like this game at all. My model has this, it should be at -2, so there's a slight lean on the Chargers. But, I mean, the Chargers, we know they're firing the head coach. It's just a matter of 2 weeks or however many more games they have left. And for the Raiders, the nosedive has continued, and they're now going to find themselves out of the playoffs again. And 2 teams that a lot of injury concerns coming into this game. I know the Raiders' entire defense seems to be injured. I think there's 5 starters I saw that did not participate in practice today. Not great when you play a Thursday game. And listen, I understand that Anthony Lynn might be dumb, but if everyone can run the ball in the Raiders, you would think the Chargers might turn around and hand the ball off a few times, but I can't trust anyone, so I'm just going to bail on this one.
I think bail is probably the right move, but I do kind of want to bet against Lynn again. I don't think it's gotten to the point where the value's gone from betting against the Chargers just based on the numbers. It's nothing subjective here. I've got about a point of value. So, yeah, that said, it's like I think that the Chargers are so talented. Like, the Chargers are really, really good. And the sort of coaching mistakes that are being made, like, that's adding to volatility, not just a reduction in like expectation of points and stuff. Like, if he gets the field goal unit out there, that's 3 points difference, So I don't know where I stand with this. I feel like there are safer games. It's just that I do think that if I had to choose a side, it would be the Raiders, and it's tempting to just bet against the worst coach, or certainly one of the bottom 3 coaches, I would say, right now. So that's where I'm at. We'll see. We'll talk through the rest of these games and figure out where I'm at relative to these other games with that, and if they make the final 3 to 5 selections. Let's talk about the Packers and the Panthers. So per the SuperContest, the Packers are 8.5-point favorites at home. I think it should be a little bit more than that, but from 8.5 to 10, that's once you get to 10 here, that's a pretty significant move for me. 10, I don't know what third on the key numbers for betting.
Yeah, it's definitely up there. This is kind of a weird spot because Carolina did not play well last week, and the expectation is Christian McCaffrey's still going to be out. I saw he was doubtful, but they're not ruling him out exactly yet. Having said all that, my model has the spread at 7.5, so slightly in on Carolina, and I like Carolina in this spot. I actually bet them already as one of the few bets I made this week. Teddy Bridgewater, I know we're going to talk about trends here, but significantly performs better as an underdog. I think kind of what happens is Carolina gets undervalued, or wherever he is, he's undervalued because of the situation. He plays well a couple weeks in a row. Then the value goes away. All of a sudden they become a favorite, and everything's not the same. Then the number flips back, and they're a dog because the public perception and the value kind of changes, and here we are again. If they would have played well and won last week, this is probably closer to 7, maybe 6.5 in that range, but I think it probably would have landed on 7. Instead, we're stuck here at 8.5. Green Bay with some much more important games coming up on the schedule to make sure that they kind of hold on to one of the top seeds, and right now they are at the top. So they want to keep that spot. I am on Carolina. I just think this plays close. I think it plays a little bit slower. But I do think Green Bay wins. But like I said, I will be taking Carolina and the points.
Man, does the weather not bother you at all? You know, like cold game at Lambeau. To me, it's like that's bet on Aaron Rodgers time if I'm trying to pick out a narrative here.
I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, obviously going against Aaron Rodgers in the cold at home is something that you don't want to do. It just feels like, so DJ Moore is going to come back for Carolina. They're going to have all the weapons outside of McCaffrey. They were competitive in spots. Like, who would have thought they would have gone to Kansas City 5 weeks ago without well, they did have Christian McCaffrey in that game, excuse me. But who would have thought they would have went there and at least been competitive and scored with them? And they've kind of done this in spots where they've been a dog this year. If you go look at their track record, every time they've been a dog, they've been competitive and they've been in the game, except for when they played Tampa Bay, which is possibly an outlier for how they play and maybe just a bad matchup. Considering that, like I said, I'm on Carolina, and this is one that if it's not in my top 5, it's definitely going to be up there.
Yeah, and so you're right. It looks like DJ Moore is going to play. Coaching staff said he's going to play, even though he's limited in practice. Today, we're recording this on Wednesday. He had an injury before landing on the COVID list, an ankle injury, but sounds like he's good to go. And that makes a little bit of a difference because they don't have enough without him, with McCaffrey also out. But yeah, I mean, if I had to choose, it would be the Packers here. I think the Packers would be a reasonably popular pick, though, so I wouldn't mind getting contrarian if that was your angle. But that would be the only angle for me. To move on to the Bills and Broncos. Broncos are at home, but they're dogs. They're 6.5-point dogs. Drew Lock looked a little bit better last week. I'll admit that. That might be the best he's looked in a game to me. But again, a game they trailed quite a bit, right? He had 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, and the interceptions are the big thing with him. Like, if he can stop throwing interceptions, he's going to be good, decent, and he's never going to be like an all-pro or something, but he can be like I don't know, what's a decent comp, like Alex Smith-ish? Like, I don't know, some sort of career like that.
That's the name I had in my head when you were like, what's the name? I was like, Alex Smith.
Yeah, it's like a mediocre career or Teddy Bridgewater, someone like that, where it's like, he's an NFL starter and that's nothing to scoff at, but he's not a difference maker, as he was referenced by someone on Twitter earlier this season. That's for dang sure. But anyway, enough about Drew Lock. No one wants to hear more of my Drew Lock opinions. With him looking a little bit better, facing this tough defense, where do you stand on that? Are you thinking that, all right, well, he's about to get destroyed here? Or do you have a little more faith heading into a matchup like this?
I actually have a little bit more faith. I do think there is something to the situation where Buffalo played a massively important game on national TV. Clearly, it was a big spot. And this is a natural letdown situation. You're going to go on the road in a difficult place to play that is not quite, obviously, the same without fans at this point in the season. But now, if you look at Denver's last four games they played, all right, so I'm going to throw out the game they didn't have any quarterbacks. So that I'm just not considering that a game. winning on the road in Carolina, losing at Kansas City by 6, and beating the Dolphins. And that Dolphins team, I think we can kind of say, is pretty good at this point. Now, the common factor is that they had good quarterback play, or at least decent quarterback play in every single one of those games that they've been competitive. So if you believe Drew Lock is going to play okay, and if you think Denver's going to run the ball, then you should be on the Denver side of this game. So I said that I bet Carolina already. One of the other games I bet is I bet Denver +7. I saw the 7 number. It kind of stood out because I saw 6.5s everywhere. And I just kind of liked home dog getting 7. And who in their right mind is going to be on Denver in this game? Kind of the same thing with the last game, like you said about being contrarian. Who's on Carolina? Maybe some sharps. But for the most part, the public is not going to be on Carolina. They're not going to be on Denver. They're not going to be on Buffalo, excuse me. So I'm going to be on Denver here. I have it at 7. I wish the contest number was 7 because 6.5 kind of makes me leery. My model does have it at 8, so conflict there. But like we said at the beginning with your opening, sometimes you kind of have to look at the situation and realize that not all of these are created equal. And Denver, the last couple of weeks, is trending better. They're playing better. Their defense has been a little bit better. So if you believe that keeps up, you should be on Denver, which I will be.
Couple things. One, you're absolutely right about Denver being the contrarian side this week. You look at Action Network has like 70% of the Bills, a bunch of money on the Bills as well, not just percentage of bets, but the total money. And the second thing I think is important for anyone that's watching the show, following the show, that's interested in like the modeling side of things, where you talked about how just throwing out the game where they didn't have any quarterbacks. And like, so you say that offhand, but like literally, if you run like an ELO system or anything like that, literally deleting the game is not a bad way to go for your model, because that's just nothing. You can't get anything valuable from that game. And I don't mean just from the Denver side either. I mean for the New Orleans side as well, the team that they played that game. So as you're building a model and you're just kind of running a bunch of game logs and stuff as a big part of the base, it's okay to delete really weird games like that, and extreme weather games sometimes too, right? Is that fair?
I think it's completely fair. I mean, going through it, like, how can you even consider it? What were they, 1 of 6 for 3 yards passing and an interception or something stupid? It wasn't even a real game. It was as closest thing to an exhibition game as you could possibly have. And, like I said, I was throwing it out for kind of my perspective, but if you are modeling and running numbers, you have to do so. This is where some manual human adjustment has to come in, because you can't just consider it the same and give it the same weight as everything else.
Yeah, there are. So some of what I do is expectation weighted, and like I can adjust my expectation down even in post, so that, all right, knowing what I know now, how many yards should they have thrown for? How many yards should they get? All that sort of thing. And that's how you can get around that sort of thing where you're still factoring it in, but with context. But most rating systems are like an ELO, and they're just not going to catch things like that. So you've got to make adjustments yourself. All right. My opinion on this is I'm 100% with you, and it's ugly. Yeah, I don't like being on the lock side. It's just essentially admitting that I am wrong this week, or for a week anyway, right? Still long-term and not high on lock, but this week I kind of do have faith with him against a bad defense, and that's weird considering everything I've said about lock. But numbers say there's about a point of value here as well. It's a contrarian side. It's the perfect kind of bet to make in a super contest, in a contest like that, where you get contrarian value and you get line value, in my opinion, per the model, not per the Vegas line, the market line. But yeah, I think that's the correct side to be on, especially for a contest like this. Let's move on to the Titans and let's go with the Colts and the Texans. Colts are at home. They're 7-point favorites. The Texans are one of the teams that's been dropping hard in my model. Their rating's gone down 2-3 points in the last week or two. And that's big. That's like, you don't see huge shifts like 2-3 points often in a week or so, but that's where I'm at. Am I overreacting? That's my concern is, okay, am I overreacting to a short sample size, or is it fair that especially with Fuller being gone, that this team is going to look a bit different?
I mean, they have to look a little bit different. The receiving situation is just ugly at this point. Now, did those guys produce at cheap prices for DFS reasons? I mean, yes, but that's completely different. That's not what we're talking about here. In this case, Indy's -7. I have this at 7.5, so I'm slight lean on Indy. The one thing I really want to say is I feel like the lines are getting a little bit sharper from Vegas purposes, at least according to my model this week. I don't have a whole lot of value kind of baked in here, considering the entire slate. I don't know if you do either, but for me, I don't have a bunch of things that I'm really interested in model-wise. And this is another one of those spots where it's a half-point difference. You know which direction one team is trending. You know which direction the other team is trending. Houston's about to hire a brand new GM, brand new coach in a couple of weeks. And the Colts, if not for the quarterback position, would probably be a team that a lot of us would be thinking as a sleeper in the AFC. Strong defense. The running game looks a little bit better. Great play action game. The coaching is fantastic. And I want absolutely no parts of betting this game. I don't feel comfortable laying the 7. I'm definitely not taking the 7 here. And I just don't like backing Phillip Rivers for the most part. It just, I don't know. For some reason, I'm just, this Colts team has me perplexed. I was on them. I was off them. I've kind of gone back and forth on them. And right now I am out on them.
Keep in mind this matchup just happened 2 weeks ago. Colts covered in that game as well, but the line was 3.5. That game was at Houston, and now it's at Indy, so that of course changes things by a decent amount. But man, I'm with you. I kind of just want to stay away from this. I don't want to go crazy on it because, and here's the thing for me, it's like it becomes interesting from a DFS perspective, more so on the Indy side with the running backs, because everyone has been able to run on Houston. And like if the out Houston had was if Indy gave it to Jonathan Taylor 20 times and Jonathan Taylor looked like he did the first 10 weeks of the season. But the last 2 weeks or so, Jonathan Taylor's looked like everyone thought he was going to look like at the beginning of the year. So like now they don't have that out, and I'm worried about that. And they don't have Will Fuller. So it's like everything is telling me to go with the Colts here. But being that it's 7 points, I don't think that it's like it's not something where I feel like I have to be on the Colts. It's just if I needed to choose, that's the side that I would take. Let's move on to the Titans at home, 11-point favorites against the Lions. The Lions are pretty bad, but they're not in like the Jags and the Jets category for me. Not really that close to that. So 11 points here against a team that's they'll be in the playoffs, I'm sure, but not that good, right? Like you don't give them any chance to be in the Super Bowl or anything, right?
So and that's kind of where we are with I think a lot of these teams and kind of everything in the AFC. I still think there's 3 teams. I think there's Kansas City, there's Pittsburgh, and there's Baltimore. And I don't care who's where. I don't care the situation. Those are the 3 most talented teams that have the best chance. You could tell me that in round 1, the 6-seeded Baltimore Ravens are going to go into Tennessee and win, even though they lost them a couple weeks ago. I'd say it's a completely different team. I would buy that.
Of course. It'd be big favorites. Yeah.
And in this situation, for this game, I don't like it. This is the biggest difference I have in the spread. My model has this at -7, so there's a lean towards Detroit. We're not completely sure on Stafford's status. Even if he is healthy and going to play, he's definitely beat up. That team is in disarray. Obviously, there's going to be a new head coach. Anytime there's that situation coming up, you don't really know what to expect for some of these teams, but you can kind of get a vibe for how to play them the last couple of weeks based upon the effort and if they're showing up week in and week out. And, Detroit didn't quit last week. Definitely hung around against Green Bay. I think they were good with the points. They were getting 7.5 when they ended up losing by 7. So they aren't quitting. And I don't know if Tennessee has the ability to put somebody away completely unless Derrick Henry decides to run for 200 yards, which is in the realm of possibility, again, in this situation. To me, this is play Detroit or stay away, and it's going to be a stay away for me.
Totally same page. It's Detroit or stay away. I think it's just too many points for a team that's not that good. Like you said, even against Green Bay, they covered 7. The line was 9. They were within 7, though. And yeah, it's just against decent teams, there'll be 40% chance to win. It's just that's not a team. This is not a team. The Titans aren't a team where you're going to want to expect to win by double digits. That's a bad side. It feels like that's always the bad side, man. Like I'm very rarely taking the double digit points unless it's Kansas City. I mean, almost only Kansas City. If we go back and watch all the previous pods, I bet you it's almost only Kansas City. Maybe occasionally Pittsburgh or Baltimore, but that's it, man. Football games are crazy, and it's rare that teams should be favored by double digits, right?
Yeah, I mean, just the sharp perspective is that a lot of people just anytime it's more than 10, they'll just take the dog. It's just automatic. And once you get over 13.5 to 14, that's even more automatic. They just take the dog, and they know that percentage-wise it's going to work out in the end, regardless of who the two teams are. Because like you said, it is the NFL. Strange things do happen. And, there's some even larger spreads than this game coming up this week. And there are some outlier teams that you might have to adjust your rankings and situation for coming up, though. I will say that.
Let's talk about one of those games then. The Rams at home against the Jets, 17.5. I've never even considered, let me bet the Rams this week. Like, never even had the desire, thought, or it's either you bet the Jets or you stay away. I'm going to stay away.
I'm in complete agreement. My model has it at 15.5, and so obviously there's a slight lean on the Jets. But like, what are we talking about here? I mean, the Jets scored first, led 3-0 in Seattle, and then I think gave up 42 straight points after that, or something to that effect. How could you possibly do anything with this Jets team? I mean, they're bad. They proceed to play Frank Gore no matter what in every possible situation. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's almost like he's trying to get fired so he can go home 2 or 3 weeks early, and they're like, no, Adam Gase, you're riding this out. You did this, so now you're going to be stuck with it. The Rams, though, pretty sneaky. I kind of like them to come out of the NFC, if I'm being honest, and it's a team that I've been thinking about placing a future wager on, but I don't like them at 12 to 13 to 1, I'll just say. I wish it was like 17, 18 to 1. There is a high likelihood they can end up being the 2 or 3 seed, obviously, in the NFC. But are you really going to trust Jared Goff to go on the road in New Orleans or Green Bay to win the NFC title game, which is kind of what we're talking about, even though he did that 2 years ago? But, is this team as good as that team? I'm not completely sure.
One of the more interesting debates to me that you see on Twitter is McVay sharp? I'm curious where you land on that, because for me, I don't have a real strong opinion on that. I think he does a lot of really sharp things when it comes to game planning, and I've watched things on him on how he will take things from different teams. All of a sudden, gets beat bad by an opponent, uses that same stuff against his next opponent. Like those sort of things, like making adjustments like that. Like, there's a level of sharpness. Not every coach is adjusting so quickly and they're willing to be so flexible and not stubborn. And like, there's an element to that. But he also, if you look at some of the kicking stats when he kicks versus when he should go for it, and he's literally the worst coach in the league at making those decisions. And part of me too, with numbers like that, feels like some context could be lost, where it's like, all right, those numbers are averaging everything. And those percentages are going to tell you the same thing if you have Mahomes at quarterback and if you have Goff at quarterback. All right? Like, they're not based on the actual team. They're based on all the teams combined. And, like, this is the chances of converting with this many yards. And so, well, it's different if it's Mahomes versus Goff. So I don't blame him as much as other people do, other sharp people, other numbers-based people do, for making those kind of decisions when he doesn't have the same kind of personnel that the elite teams out there do. Like, Goff, I think, is average at best, right? So where do you stand with McVay? I'm not super opinionated on it, even though I just gave you an opinion.
So I'm kind of landing that I think he's sharper than I think a lot of people want to give him credit for, despite some of the fourth down issues and where he's kicked. The reality is that is a team that has made some very bizarre personnel decisions and has basically punted on the draft for a number of years for up-and-coming stars and veterans. And a lot of the time, those have been defensive players. So they are leaning more on their defense than a lot of other teams. They have no problem and are very comfortable playing low-scoring games, running the ball a little bit more, using bootlegs and play action. I think he's someone that knows the limitations of his quarterback very, very well. Because of that, he's going to do everything he can to put him in a position to succeed, not turn it over, and not play terribly. The biggest example of this is whenever the Rams played in Miami a bunch of weeks ago, we were all over Miami, loved them. It worked out well. Goff's worst game of the year. But what did Miami do? A lot of creative things that maybe he couldn't be prepared for, things he couldn't check out of or get ready for at the line of scrimmage. Not everybody has the ability or the players to do that. So I think McVay is doing the best he can considering his limitations and limited options. And it's not like they are loaded with offensive weapons. I mean, they have some nice pieces. Cam Akers emerging kind of matters. And, obviously having Bob Woods and Cooper Kupp is – I've been calling him Bob Woods for like 4 years. It's like an inside joke with a friend of mine. So I just have to keep that going.
It's his name, so it's fair.
Yeah, instead of Robert, though. But, they have enough, but not any type of wow-type offensive weapons, right? Is there anybody that you're like, oh, man, we can't let this person catch the ball in space, or, oh, man, we can't let this person get going? They just don't have that player.
That's the closest thing, but no.
But even that's, Yeah, he also disappears at times. Having said all of that, like, they still put up points. They're still competitive. Last year, post-Super Bowl, kind of everything fell apart. Nothing worked out. And this year, they've been slowly, quietly. The defense is very good. They're getting pressure. They have the defensive player of the year. They can shut you down. They can do different things. They can play different styles of games. The only thing I would worry about is, like a lot of these situations is if they get down 10 or 14, they can struggle. But there isn't anybody in the NFC that really plays that way that I'm like, oh, man, they could get down deep to this team and be in trouble. It just feels like they're going to be competitive in every game. And, what are we talking about? If two plays go different in the Super Bowl, Jared Goff's Super Bowl winning quarterback from 2 years ago, right? Considering how close that game was.
Yeah. I guess, yeah. Hadn't really thought about that, but makes sense. The last thing I'll point out on this, and we can move on for a game that we talked the most about, despite neither of us wanting to bet. If you do bet this and you do like the Jets, I like the under on these types of games where you got just such a massive spread. That's one of the more positively correlated bets you can make when it comes to spreads and totals. Is the under with the underdog, a big underdog like this. And think about it too, the profiles of the teams with the Rams, great defense, and the Jets who are probably just going to run the ball more than they should. It would fit well for that profile and the under. All right, let's go with the Buccaneers and Falcons. Falcons are at home, but they're the 6-point underdogs. Bucs are an up and down team. That I would say I like overall. They're I think a top 3 contender in the NFC. Do you put the Rams ahead of them now? I know you liked the Bucs earlier in the season, but it sounds like you're coming around on the Rams.
I definitely am coming around on the Rams over the Bucs. I don't know what it is. Just something's not quite there for them. It just feels like everything is just not cohesive. And anytime there's a situation where, they're given an opportunity and it just doesn't – like even last week, if Minnesota makes a few more kicks, then that's a completely different game. And by a few more, I mean not missing 3 field goals and an extra point. It's a completely different situation. But Tampa just – something is amiss. Now, this could easily be a spot where they go and roll in and just kind of roll over somebody because they seem to do that every 3 or 4 weeks. Tampa puts it all together. They look like world beaters for 4 quarters, and they roll up 40-some points and win. And this could be that spot. My model has it at 7, so there's a slightly on Tampa, but I don't feel comfortable with it. And it's just not something that I'm prepared to do to back Tampa. I think everybody was very excited Tampa Bay is going to be the 5 seed. They're going to play the NFC East team. And then now I keep thinking about that Washington pass rush going after Brady, making him feel uncomfortable for 4 quarters. And if Washington could score enough points in that playoff game and betting the under, frankly, in that playoff game. So these are all scenarios that I played out in my head for the future for assuming Tampa's going to be the 5 seed, but they might not even be the 5 seed now. So we'll see.
I'm trying to remember what happened that game to just ruin it for like they hardly ran any plays. Like Brady threw it 20 times and Ronald Jones touched it 20 times, and like that was pretty much it. Is there a defensive touchdown or something? Like how was it just really slow? I can't remember. Or do you know?
I can't remember either off the top of my head. Now you got me looking. I'm going to go pull this
Yeah,
up.
just like I'm going through and looking at because I played Brady in DFS and it was one of his worst games. It wasn't good, but it's because he threw the ball 23 times only. Like his yards per attempt were good and everything. And it's not he's turning the ball.
You mean this past week?
Yeah, Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota dominated time possession. Cook ran for 100 yards. They ran him like 25 times, and Minnesota was like clearly run the ball, convert on 3rd and 3, run the ball, convert on 3rd and 3, and they just kept him off the field for so long. But Minnesota couldn't do anything once they got in the red zone and kind of got stuck there. And then, well, those field goal attempts did not go well. So
yeah, I would say so. It's what is that, Bailey, right? They have Dan Bailey.
I don't know how he's still employed, to be honest, but
yeah. So did you say which side you like?
I mean, the model leans Tampa Bay. I kind of want to go with Atlanta, but no confidence in either way. I mean, again, like I said, Tampa Bay every 4 or 5 weeks just kind of blows somebody out, and this could be the spot right here. But I won't play this game in either direction.
I like Atlanta a little bit, but this was a side that I was only going to take if you wanted to bet it too. Like I needed a little bit of a nudge. But I
get it. You know what? Home dogs. The home dogs, especially at this point in the year. And again, who in their right mind is going to bet Atlanta without pulling up the numbers in front of me? I'd be curious to know what the bet splits are. But this might be one of those 80-20 games where 80% of the bets are on Tampa Bay. And you want to be the opposite side of those. But, I guarantee you the sharper play is being on the ugly side of Atlanta here because Tampa's, just completely inconsistent.
Well, the number of bets is even, but the total money, it's like almost Tampa right now. So, that's a good indicator that the Atlanta side is a bit sharper, I would say. All right, let's move on. Let's keep going. Let's talk about the Dolphins at home against the Patriots. Only a 2-point spread here. Dolphins, Tua, again, up and down with inconsistency, and that's kind of what we expected from the beginning. We didn't expect him to just light everything up, light the world up from the jump. We expected there to be some problems. He threw his first interception of his career, was it 5-6 games in now, last week. But there were very much some positives in that game as well, positive takeaways, I would say. And, to me, Tua looks like he belongs and everything. It's just fine. I don't think that he looks overwhelmed or anything at this point. He threw the ball 48 times last week, had a couple interceptions along with one interception along with the 2 touchdowns.
This is one of the most difficult handicapping spots of the entire weekend, I think. This number is begging you to take the Dolphins. They are absolutely saying, we do not believe in the Dolphins. We know the public's going to line up to bet the Dolphins here. Everybody saw New England lose. New England looks like they're dead. They can't throw for anything. And my model has us at -5. It says I should be on the Dolphins. And I said this last week. It's just all those years. I am so scared to do it. This is such a public game, such a public side. New England has no reason to even be in this game. Miami's defense should be able to shut them down, no problems, and New England should struggle to score completely. With Miami's injuries, though, I think by the end of the game last week, you and I were playing wide receiver towards the back end. I don't know who's healthy for them. Who's the running back? Who's the receiver? Who's going to be actually catching passes for them? And I want to know all this a little bit later on the week. Like you said, this is Wednesday. Let me get the Thursday, Friday practice reports where I'm going to lock this in. But if you are going to bet Miami, I would suggest doing it now before this number gets to 3. There is no way the public is not going to drive this up to 3 unless professionals are coming in on New England. For the contest, if you want something contrarian, New England's it. I can't do it. I think New England's terrible. I think I'm not afraid to bet against them, but I'm afraid of this specific spot. So maybe I am afraid to bet against them just again.
Yeah. So regarding the injuries, and it's not even just the wide receivers with Parker and Grant that are hurt, and of course Preston Williams has been out. He's been on IR, but Jasicki got hurt as well, and that might even be the biggest, considering Tua's been targeting him heavily, very heavily. Jasicki's got 4 touchdowns in the last 3 games. So that would be a big deal. In regards to the line movement, one thing to try and potentially find an edge in is the practice reports from Friday. So Friday, I think you could see line movement in this game, like you're talking about, where all of a sudden, if Jasicki is looking like he's going to play, Parker is looking like he's going to play, I could see that line move towards Miami here. I have New England as a play, but I don't trust it. Again, point to the volatility of just I don't feel confident in me or my model or anything being able to project the New England Patriots week to week. It just seems like a lost cause. It just seems like they look like they're the most Jekyll and Hyde team that I've seen. Like they're a team that 2 weeks ago I feel super confident. Oh wow, I'm getting 100-1 for the Patriots to win the Super Bowl, and then the week later go, what am I thinking? Like this team has no chance. How is this team gonna compete with the worst teams in the playoffs? They suck. But it's just, I don't think that's gonna end. That's gonna continue for the rest of the season. So I'm out. Let's go to the Seahawks at Washington. Washington 5-point dogs. I assume Alex Smith isn't going to play, but I don't think we have that officially yet. I think the way it's priced, it's saying that Alex Smith isn't going to play. Is that how you have it?
That's kind of my guess, but how many points is Alex Smith really worth to this team? And I would think a little bit. That's what I'm going to say is, as crazy as it sounds, that's a sentence that, 10 weeks ago, if I said, I would have said, you're an idiot that I'm actually going to say that. But I think he might be worth a couple points. This just might be a complete public perception game where everybody still thinks Seattle is this juggernaut team that's so good and can do a bunch of things. But, my model has it at exactly 5 even. So it has the number. There's no lean. I will just say this, that if Alex Smith plays, give me the 5 points. Thank you. And I will move on. If Alex Smith doesn't play, this will be a pass for me then, just because Dwayne Haskins is involved.
I have the line at 3 with Alex Smith in. So to me, that's like very clearly it's 2 or 2.5 points that they're giving Alex Smith. I feel pretty confident in that. I like betting this game. There's no way for me or you to tell people what to do with the information we have. I don't think. If I had to get my picks in by Thursday, not knowing who the quarterback is, I'm not going to do it. But ultimately, I can't see myself betting this either way. If Alex Smith is in and you're getting the 5.5, then there's some value there. But that's assuming that Alex Smith is Alex Smith, and Alex Smith isn't 85% or 80% of Alex Smith, right? Like these are numbers. These are not like I haven't the number I'm getting spit out right here isn't adjusted Alex Smith down or anything because of he's coming off an injury. So Rivera said that he's not ruling him out even if he doesn't practice all week, and that's another thing. It's like, can a veteran get away with that? Maybe, but it's like, it's not just like reps. It's game planning for the opponent, and some of that can be done in film and everything, but like reps, practicing against schemes you're going to see. And so I think having that fresh in your mind matters, and that is not something that I'm capturing in the model in any way. So just wanted to point that out. Let's move on. Let's talk about the Vikings at home against the Bears. They're 3-point favorites. It's just going to come down to the run game for them. It seems like, even though they have the weapons, they have the elite wide receiver core to get it done in the air. I feel like if Dalvin Cook gets 100, 150 yards, and they probably did pretty well that game.
I mean, that's kind of what we're talking about with Minnesota here. Is when they don't turn it over, the defense has kind of improved. And I think we've mentioned this a bunch of times. Since their bye week, the defense has gotten dramatically better from being terrible to average, which is enough when you can run the football and you have 2 dynamic receivers on the outside. I found my way to Chicago early Sunday morning last week whenever the Brandon Cooks news hit, and that ended up being very nice. and this is a situation where I'm going to go completely the opposite direction. I don't think the Bears could have played any better. Mitch played well. The defense played well. They ran the ball. You know, when you start with an 85-yard touchdown run on the first play of the game from scrimmage, things can go very well. It's almost
That was
disappointing.
awesome.
Yeah,
Well, I love that. That was the best moment of the day for me.
But I mean, it wasn't kind of disappointing you didn't have a bigger game considering what he started with. Like that's what I was thinking.
Career, literally, it's the
know,
most points he's had in his career.
But listen, I had a Montgomery Henry lineup on FanDuel, so I'm sitting there going, okay, we're getting one, let's go, let's get the other. I'm just like, keep going. You know, I just expected they were both going to run for 250 yards and 4 touchdowns. The way that everything kind of started and was going.
I apologize for your 27.5 points, man. That is so disappointing. Yeah.
It was definitely a home run call considering what Aaron Jones did in the later game or didn't do. You know, considering where the ownership was in that situation. But in this one, give me Minnesota. Chicago kind of hanging around along with Minnesota, all of these teams for that last playoff spot. And they really need Arizona to do something now and to kind of to fall. And Arizona seems like maybe they're putting it back together. But Minnesota doesn't quit. They could have easily won that game in Tampa last week if, like we said, if the kicking game just goes a little bit different. It's at least a one-possession game when they have the ball towards the end there instead of them running around and doing a bunch of different things. But so give me Minnesota, and I will happily lay 3 points against Mitch Trubisky on the road in one of his last few starts, I think at least.
Who's going to be their quarterback? It's not Foles. They can't draft another quarterback because they have too much money spent on quarterbacks, right? Or is Foles a free agent at the end of the year? I don't know.
I honestly don't know off the top of my head without looking up their contract. But this
you can't have 3 quarterbacks totaling $100 million or something. I mean, it's just they're stuck with him for one more year, I think.
I could be wrong, but isn't this the same team that gave Mike Glennon like $30 million and then like 7 weeks later traded up to number 2 to get Mitch Trubisky? So anything's in play once you do something like that back and forth. Those are two things that don't kind of coincide at all. But I think those things kind of conflict. So they might have no problem doing that again. So you never know. I mean, every now and again, we're like, there's no way that so-and-so is going to get traded. Who's going to want this person? And someone else is like, we can work on this. I mean, do we not remember that Brock Osweiler was basically traded with a second-round pick to make his contract go away? So somebody somewhere might be interested, and you never know. But I'll take Minnesota in this one.
It's the funny thing with quarterbacks. It's like there's always one team that's desperate enough to just take a chance on the worst guy out there. Like the worst contract, it doesn't matter. I mean, the Bears are a good example of that by taking Foles. It's like no one else wanted Foles, but the Bears are like, well, I might as well try. I mean, what's it going to hurt, right? So who knows? Maybe Mitch is dealt and Foles is the backup for some kid they draft. But I agree with you on what the correct side is, even though my model has the line exactly the same. There's no value in this per the model, but you're looking at Chicago, and they just look very, very bad. The only game they've covered in the last 5 or more games is like that Houston game, and I had already talked about how Houston was one of the fastest droppers in my model, like the one of the lowest rated teams now in the league. So like if they were going to be competitive against anyone, it would be them. Competing against Minnesota, just it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. It seems like Minnesota would be the right side there. Let's move to the Ravens and the Jaguars, and this is the biggest line difference value, but when you think of it in percentages, it's not as big of a deal since this line is so big. We've got the Ravens favored by, they have it at 12.5 in the Super, and I've got it at 15.5. So that's 3 points, and it's significant. Crosses numbers that mean something like 14 is a 5th or 6th most important number. But yeah, I think just the Ravens are a team that I'm going to be on the rest of the season.
I said it a couple weeks ago. I took the Ravens at 37-1 to win the Super Bowl when I saw that number, and I still think, at the time I thought they would struggle to even get the 7th seed. They can win out and they can end up at the 6th seed and not even have to go through Pittsburgh and Kansas City right away, considering the situation. This is a really bizarre line. Jacksonville's now going to go back to Gardner Minshew. They really don't seem like they have any type of plan or kind of idea for what they're doing and what they're looking at for the future. Are they going to get a look at someone they've already gotten a look at? I don't really know what's going on in Jacksonville outside of assuming they're going to fire everybody at the end of the year. They already got rid of the GM, so the head coach will probably be next. Baltimore's trending in the right direction. It seems like this is a spot where Baltimore should be able to run for 300 yards as a team, hand the ball off a bunch of times to all those guys, run a bunch of options. Lamar looks great. They're all excited. But I'm a little bit leery of laying that many points. My model has a slight lean on Jacksonville, and I can't do it. I can't take Jacksonville. I can't go against Baltimore because I think Baltimore's going to go on a roll and win out and make things very interesting in round one.
Yeah, I mean, we just talked about how I hate laying that many points, but I teased that there are one or two teams and mentioned Baltimore being one of them that could potentially get me to back them against the right opponents. And it's essentially the Jets and the Jaguars, the only two teams that I would probably be on Baltimore here against at this number. The Jaguars and the Jets are the two worst. They're like on their own tier. They're the two worst teams in the league right now for me. And like you can ask, like, what's the difference between doing that then for the Rams against the Jets? I think Baltimore is much better than the Rams. Again, another tier above the Rams, and we're looking at a smaller line. It's just a really big difference when you look at it all combined, right? Do you disagree that the Ravens are better than the Rams?
I don't know if I'm ready to do that just because of the health of the Rams completely versus the Ravens. I know they had a bunch of players in the secondary kind of go down in that game on Monday night. And I know that the Baltimore offensive line, at least the left side, is still not completely healthy, and I don't think will be the rest of the year. So I'm not ready to say that, but, you know, the reason that I'm high on the Rams, I think the path to come out of the NFC, we all agree, is significantly easier than the path to come out of the AFC to win the Super Bowl. That's not even a take. That's just, that's just common knowledge, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, like I said, I don't care what Baltimore's record is. I still think they're the third best team in the AFC, and I have no problem saying that repeatedly. I don't want my Steelers to see them for a third time. I'm hopeful that there's some way that the schedule breaks that doesn't happen. And I think I looked, and so if Baltimore's a 6 seed and they win, Pittsburgh plays the 2-7, it provided the Steelers hold on to the 2 spot, that would automatically send Baltimore as a 6 seed to Kansas City because they reseed. So, you know, not like I'm looking ahead or planning these things out or looking at the ESPN.com's playoff machine several times a week or anything like that. No, I would never do that, you know.
It's funny because I almost tweeted about this scenario right before we went on to do the pod. And I was like, I can't do that to Milo. He's going to be distracted all the time and tilted if I tweet about how I think the best possible money-making opportunity that could come up in the playoffs is if Baltimore and Pittsburgh face off against each other, because people, I'm not throwing you into this, you're a fan, you want the Steelers to win, but people cannot wrap their minds around a team that beats someone out, like one team against another team. The one team is won 2 out of 2 games. They can't wrap their mind around the other team possibly being a favorite in that situation, which, depending on what happens the rest of the season, Baltimore very well could be the favorite. It'll be close anyway. It's not going to be like a 7-point spread or anything near that. It'll be around 3 points one direction or the other. But I guess it's just the perfect money-making opportunity, I think, because it'll be skewed. The market will be skewed towards that, because I'm not just throwing like the public in that, like sharps and everything. I feel like get biased towards just seeing the results of teams facing off against each other, and the value would be on the Ravens, I think.
I mean, I want no parts of them a third time. Absolutely 0 parts of it. I don't want a healthy Ravens team with everybody back, with COVID behind them, coming into Pittsburgh. The Steelers, provided they get everybody back who's kind of beat up on defense right now, that would be a benefit. But if not, I could see that line opening at like Pittsburgh -2, and it's just staring at me all week. And I know what my heart wants to do, and I know what my head wants to do. And that's where you get yourself in trouble as a sports bettor, you know, where you want to listen to something else or ego gets in the way. You got to check all those things at the door and kind of set yourself down, center yourself, meditate, count 10, breathe, whatever works for you to kind of make sure that you don't do anything stupid. You have to do it in those spots. And Baltimore is coming. and I hope they're coming for the 6 seed, and I hope Buffalo's the 3 seed. I hope it's not Pittsburgh in round 1.
Yeah, so I just, as you were talking, I looked it up to see what my model would make it, and it would be Pittsburgh minus 2.25. So it would be 2.5. You always round up, but yeah, I think that line would that would be amazing if that ends up happening. I would be all over the Ravens, and we would be enemies for a week, but it would still be a good time. All right, so all of that. Final thing I'll point out is that you made some good points about injuries. I need to go revisit the defensive injuries for Baltimore. I saw that Marquise Brown was on the COVID list, factored that in, but maybe am not factoring in enough the defensive side and the injuries there. And for now, I'm going to hold off on making that like one of my main selections or anything, especially considering I talked about not liking taking the big spreads. Let's go to the Browns and the Giants. What a game last week between those two teams, by the way. Browns are on the road, 4.5-point favorites now. They are kind of just riding quite a bit of public steam, I would say, like public momentum. They look better, I think, than they actually are. We bet against the Browns last week, so I think you were on that too, right? Yeah. So maybe there's like some, again, confirmation bias, some sort of bias there against the Browns. It's like, see, I told you they weren't going to cover, even though that game could have gone either way easily, depending on how long it took Lamar to poop. But against the Giants, what do you think? I think they're probably better than the Giants. I don't know that they're more than a field goal better than them, though.
Well, something I want to point out, we talked about Baltimore last week, and I think the line was 1.5 or 2 whenever we talked, and we both said we were going to take them. I said I had already bet them. And, we can't hammer this point home anymore, but if you had bet them early, you didn't need the safety at the end. You were good. I had Baltimore at -1 from a week earlier. I didn't need it. But this is the edge in betting numbers early and getting ahead of the market and taking advantage of the situation. If you're going to Cleveland, you could have waited and got the 3.5 by game time, and should have been on a winner. But the situation happened and it kind of goes down. But always pay attention and think about when you're betting a team and what the number is more important than if you're going to bet it at all. It's just something that everybody needs to consider if you're going to actually take this seriously and try to make money at it. For this game, so my model has it at 2. So there is a high lean on the New York Giants here. Now, I don't know how healthy Daniel Jones is because obviously he did not look that great last weekend. I don't know what to make of this game completely because I needed to see Baker do something and play well in a big stage in an important game. I just thought he was going to come out and play poorly. He didn't, but he did make that one bad throw that meant a ton. And there is an argument to be made that, when Baltimore got up 14, Lamar leaves the field, Cleveland scores, gets a 3 and out, Cleveland scores. If Lamar doesn't leave the field, does any of that even happen? Do they just go right back down the field to score? Because to that point in the second half, Baltimore had gone touchdown, Cleveland went down and scored, and then there's no Lamar, and Trace McSorley went 3 and out because Hollywood Brown dropped a pass on 3rd down. So, there's an argument to be made that whole situation never plays out if Lamar's stomach doesn't get upset or whatever kind of happened in that situation.
Leg cramps.
I think the correct play here is probably leg cramps. Yeah, the same thing that happens to me whenever I eat 2 dozen wings and 3 pitchers of beer, leg cramps.
I don't know.
I'm sure.
So yeah, is that it on this?
So in this game though, I think I think I kind of want to be on the Giants here, and it's probably a good spot to actually jump back on Cleveland, but I think the public perception is that was actually a good game for Cleveland despite the loss. So I think the line's a little bit higher than it should be. Model has a slight lean on the Giants. I kind of have a little bit of interest, but more than likely a stay away for me.
I'm going to stay away. I think the line should be 3, but so if I needed another team, they're fine. That's a good amount of value, but don't feel like I need to go there this week. Let's go to the Cardinals and the Eagles. Jalen Hurts obviously looked great, better than I expected. Ran for a ton of yards, and while I did expect him to run for a lot of yards, I took the over prop. If you guys want to see the props that I like for the week, it's on NumberBet. And I post at least a few of those a week, and it was over 40 yards. It's like, I think that's pretty easy. I think he had 105 or something. Do you think that that's just going to be what to expect? More of like a Lamar Jackson type rushing output from him, Kyler Murray, maybe like that sort of guy? Or was that fluky and we're going to see a more balanced quarterback approach from him?
That's who he was in college, though. He was a runner. He was a dual threat, but more so he could run. I mean, he had a 1,000-yard rushing season in college. So this is completely who he is and kind of what I would expect to continue from him. I have this problem, and I'm not really sure what to do about it. I can't quit betting the Eagles. It worked out by accident against Seattle. It did not work out and should have against Green Bay. It worked out very well last weekend. I just can't quit betting the Eagles. I think they're completely undervalued. For whatever reason, I have this belief in my head that they are an above-average defense with a decent enough offense, and the quarterback was holding them back. We removed the quarterback. Defense looked great last week. This is definitely a different animal, provided that Kyler Murray's healthy, which he looked like he kind of was last week, but not that dramatically healthy. I believe the Philly defense continues to show up because they're not eliminated. They can still win that division, as can pretty much anyone, as crazy as that kind of seems. But my model has 6.5, so there is kind of a slight lean towards Arizona via the model, but I really like Philly in this one. And it's probably fool's gold because I think everybody knows what they did last week. So I think this number is a little bit lower than what it should be. It should probably be a little bit over 7.
Two teams that have mostly been bad against the spread lately, and the Cardinals, for the most part, we saw it coming because of the injury. I've been pointing that out. Although I pointed out last week too, and they covered against the Giants, so was wrong there. But my model likes Arizona here. I am surprised. I thought you were going to say that you like Arizona as well. So I'm kind of thrown off here. Originally, I was planning on taking Arizona, and I think that after everything you just said there and the uncertainty of just what to expect from Jalen Hurts, I'm willing to pass on this. But are you saying that the Eagles are going to make your top 3 to 5 or so?
I don't think I can do that. I don't have confidence in that. I am worried that the number is, because of the public perception, a little bit lower. Like I said, I feel like if the Eagles would have lost last week to the Saints, this is probably 7 or more. And just because they kind of held on and won at a tough spot. And really, the Saints are a little bit more one-dimensional than I think we all want to give them credit for, which is kind of easier to defend. This is a quarterback that is similar, except for significantly better whenever it comes to being a thrower. And I don't know. I just something about Philly that just I feel like there's a lot of value still on them, even though they are not a good football team in any way, shape, or form. Top 3, no, but whenever it comes Sunday morning and I'm struggling for that 4th or 5th team, very well they could end up there.
That's fair. I like rooting for Hurts. He's a fun guy to root for. I might have him in DFS. I don't know. But, I was leaning the Cardinals here, but I'm willing to stay away. Let's talk about the Chiefs and the Saints. Chiefs are on the road, but they're favored by 3 points, and that to me is just like a easiest bet ever. Is give me the Chiefs favored by 3 against the Saints, who there's no team close to the Chiefs for me in terms of power rating and strength when trying to put a number on it.
It's funny. It's like this seems too easy, and this is where I get scared because it just feels like you would just roll in and you would just bet Kansas City and they would go and dominate here. New Orleans is kind of where my model leans here. I have this spread at 1. And, of course, that is factoring in the situation with Taysom Hill being the starting quarterback as Drew Brees is I don't know if he's 100% been rolled out, but I don't believe he's going to play at all at this point. And there is absolutely no way I'm playing New Orleans. I could see some sharp people playing New Orleans and trying to play in the situation. But if you're telling me that Mahomes, after his worst game as a professional with 3 interceptions, is going to again play bad in back-to-back weeks, When has he ever played bad in back-to-back weeks? It's hard enough for him to play bad in 1 week. He's not going to play bad in back-to-back weeks. This looks like a layup. And it's one of those, like, I have a wide open breakaway and I'm afraid I'm going to turn behind me and I'm going to miss it. That's how easy it looks. So I'm scared of it, but I probably will be with you on Kansas City in this one.
Yeah, I don't care what the model says. It says to take New Orleans. It just there's no way. There's no way. The Chiefs are going to win most games, right? So they've lost one game against the Raiders, and you couldn't have predicted that. It's not like if it were a 3-point spread here, that you would take the Raiders again. It's just 3 points. We're not talking about having to cover 7 or double digits or anything like we usually are with the Chiefs. You've got to win, basically. And it's dangerous to just call it that because it's not that simple. But feel pretty good about 3. Feel really good about 3. That's going to be one of my bets. Absolutely. Mahomes is just on another level. Worth about 10 points to the spread. Historically, I believe that he has the most value to the spread than anyone in the history of the NFL, going back to, I mean, I've got numbers back to like the 60s, 70s. None of those guys, man, have had a game that Mahomes, that has the same impact as Mahomes. So it's the Chiefs, dude. Got to be the pick. Let's move on to the Niners and Cowboys. This one's a little more difficult. The Niners are on the road here, but they are favorites against the Cowboys. The Cowboys, it's just like, it's 2 teams where if they can get just decent quarterback play, the offense can hum because they've got weapons. The Niners are going to be able to run with anyone, essentially. And then they've got, they lost Debo. Ayuk is incredible. You could argue the second best receiver, though I'm sure you would argue Claypool. I think that, I'm very high on Claypool as well, but Justin Jefferson's number 1, right? Then those 2?
Yeah, in some order, yeah.
So, yeah, I think that it's kind of a wild card game where I could see this being a total shootout or a total dud. It's just what kind of quarterback play are we going to get out of these teams?
I honestly don't really know what to do with this game. The fact that San Francisco is a 3-point favorite in Dallas with Nick Mullins starting at quarterback. Mostert might not even play, I think. Debo is out. Why are they favored? Like, what am I missing here? I don't understand. I get that, but, like, at some point you do have to score, right? You have to not turn it over. I'm not really sure about this game. It just feels so weird and so wonky. It got flexed from Sunday Night Football to like 1 p.m. that no one wants to watch this game, right? If you don't have DFS or you're not betting on it, this game should be nowhere near your TV. My model has the San Francisco -5. So lean towards San Francisco. I don't know how you can really feel confident in either situation in this game. The likelihood I'm going to put this in one of my top 5 in any of my picks contests is probably slim, unless there's some sort of news that breaks. If you told me that Mostert was going to play and Debo was going to play, all in on San Francisco then. They'll run the ball, play action. I know they'll be fine. Kyle Shanahan will do what he needs to do. I definitely want to be on the San Francisco side of the coaching matchup, but Dallas just seems
Milo makes the running back and the number 2 receiver worth 3 points.
They're not worth any points. I said I'd be on them. There's a difference between having value added to the line and me being on someone. I feel a little bit more comfortable. It's the same way, if you told me your center and left tackle are out, they're not adding any points to the line because of it, but it would make me feel more comfortable to be involved in a team that has those players healthy as opposed to sitting out. Make sense?
I know what you mean. Yeah, totally. My model has the Niners here, but I'm with you. Why take this? When there's a game like we just talked about where it's just, all right, obviously I'm taking the Chiefs. Why would you mess with a game where I don't know, who knows what's going to happen in this game? It's pretty ugly. Doesn't make any sense. There are enough games where we can find 3 to 5 games and feel better about this one, I think. Let's move on to the last one. We've got your team, the Steelers, on the road against the Bengals, 12.5 points, and that's why I'm going to stay away. It's just too big of a spread. Like the Steelers and everything, I think they probably cover here maybe if I had to choose, but I had no confidence in that at all.
I can't believe this Pittsburgh team that has barely been able to crack 20 points the last 3 weeks is now going to give 12.5 or 13 on the road seems insane to me. My model has us at 13, so slight lean on Pittsburgh. I don't know how you could possibly play Cincinnati in this spot, though, right? Like, they just are struggling to score against everybody. They're turning it over against the Dallas defense. What are they going to do against Pittsburgh defense? The Steelers need this game. Believe it or not, despite everything that's happened, the Steelers win and beat Cincinnati. They clinch the AFC North. They lock up a top 4 seed. They win their next 2. They're automatically the 2 seed. They're not going to be able to catch Kansas City because of the way the tiebreakers go. Kansas City would have to drop 2 of their final 3, and Pittsburgh would have to win out for them to get the 1 seed. That's not happening. Pittsburgh is kind of locked into the 2 or 3 seed for the most part between them and Buffalo. As I said, I think it's imperative they get to 2. I don't want to see Baltimore in round 1. So I think it kind of matters if they get there. I think the Steelers will end up blowing them out in this spot. This will be like the offense looks good again. What happened? How did they do this? They ran the ball. They did this. They did that. And it'll be a false sense of security that they actually could do anything because it's more about the deficiencies of the Cincinnati Bengals than about what the Pittsburgh Steelers can do this weekend. Monday night, I will be settling down, watching my team play, and probably whenever it's 0-0 with 2 minutes to go in the first quarter, I'm going to sit there going, why did I lay the 12.5 here? But that's kind of what I expect from the Steelers. Either that or it's going to be 14-0 in 5 seconds with 2 turnovers.
Man, the most tilting thing last week was playing Gio and have him getting 3 carries because he fumbled. His first career fumble, first ever fumble, and he gets benched. Like, that's just idiotic. And I've said positive things about Taylor too, and how he seems like he might be sharp. I don't know. Limited information, right? I saw this, and even though I'm 100% biased, I'm going, you've got to be kidding me. Like, how dumb do you have to be to bench your running back when he fumbled for the first time in his career? Like, did you not know that he doesn't fumble? I don't know. But anyway, I think the Bengals would have been a little bit better if they actually used their running back that was available to them last week. All that said, like I already said, I'm not betting this game, but everything you said makes sense. I get it. I buy the narrative and all that. I don't trust it, though. Let's talk about the games we actually do like, sum that all up. We've talked about them each game by game, but as we're ranking out our favorite ones, which ones stand out to you?
So this might be a little unorthodox. I'm going to give you 2 Saturday games that I kind of liked right off the bat. And they're the only 2 games that I've bet at this point throughout the week. Is I'm on Carolina getting 8.5 in Green Bay. And I'm on Denver, and I know the contest is a number of 6.5. I have 7 in the bet that I made. So take that for what you will. Of course, I wish it would be 7. But I'm going to take the 6.5. I'm going to go with the home dog. And then, of course, I mentioned them. I like the Minnesota Vikings here in this spot against Chicago. Everything went right for Chicago last week. Everything's going to go wrong this week. Minnesota continues to fight and continues to play hard every week. And give me the small number. I'll back them. And I'll stick with those 3. I'm gonna kind of back away from Philadelphia kindly and step back and say, let's pump the brakes here. And I'll leave Kansas City for you to take as the slam dunk play.
Really, though, part of this, too, is as I'm looking and trying to figure out, all right, if I can pick 3 teams, which 3 teams are they? You've talked me out of a couple. And it's no, but it's a good thing. Like, it's narrowing the list down. The biggest battle, the biggest objective I have every weekend, basically anything from DFS, sports betting, whatever, is like, we start with some viable options, and let me just cut that list down until I get down to the premium, the best options, and focus on that. And once we do that, once we get rid of, all right, what are the games that the Milo is kind of just not on, or that he's on the complete other side of, maybe I forget about those since my opinion wasn't strong enough. There are some times where I'll be on the side. Like, if you came on here and said, I don't like the Chiefs, then I would be like, you're stupid then. So I still like the Chiefs. Who cares? And so, I mean, that's where I'm at with the Chiefs. Like, I have my mind made up. That's going to be one of my favorite bets. I don't care if the perception is that it's the fish side or anything, or the public side. It's just, that just makes too much sense for my brain to be on the other side of that, or to even pass up on that at that small of a number. And then the other one is, which you are on and backed up, is the Broncos. Broncos, to me, is the perfect combination of you're on the right projectable side, the right side with the line that your model likes, and all that makes sense to me. I can create narratives that make sense, with whether it be Drew Lock starting to play better, looking better, positive signs there, whatever. Denver looks like another great team. As I'm trying to find a third, there's not one that I have like that level of confidence as those other two, but Baltimore would probably be number 3. The reason, the biggest thing against them is that I hate taking these huge spreads. I don't feel as confident in my ability to be on the right side with the big spreads as I do in a situation with like the Chiefs and the Saints, and I just have to tell you what the better team is for the most part. But the Ravens, I do think they're undervalued, and you made some good points about how some of the results, the scoring results from the last game, margin of victory, those sort of things that are in people's models may not have accounted for, and why there could be some line value there as well. So for me, it's the Broncos, the Ravens, and the Saints. Any thoughts on those 3?
You mean Chiefs, not Saints, right?
I'm sorry. Yeah, let me make sure I say the right side and not have everyone take the exact opposite side of what I like. Yeah, Chiefs.
And this is where I'm going to agree with you on something that you can plug all these numbers in. You can have whatever model you want, but at some point the eye test has to matter, and it has to make sense to you. Is this team playing well? Are they getting better every week? Are they a team that is ascending or descending, and what the situation is? And no one would disagree with you that Kansas City looks like they're ready. We all think that the AFC is the much better conference between the two because it's a little bit top heavy. And if Kansas City played New Orleans in the Super Bowl tomorrow, what's the spread? It's not 3. I'll tell you that. It's going to be significantly more than that. So, that makes sense. And I agree with you. And just be careful of a lot of these home teams that are getting a bunch of points in some of these spots that look a little bit too easy, like Miami. Miami's probably a team that I think should be good, should have no problems, but just be leery. You said, crossing things off. I think that's the best thing and best advice you can give. A lot of people are looking for reasons to bet games. They're waiting for someone to say, I like this. Then they jump on it too. It should be the opposite. You should be looking for reasons to not bet games. Why can I step away from this? Why can I not do this? I don't have to bet the Monday night game just because I'm home and I'm watching the Monday night game. No. You have to have a reason. You have to have a lean. There should be something more behind it other than, I just want to bet this game because I'm at home. If you want to do that for entertainment, great. But then don't complain if it doesn't work out for you because you're not trying to make money. You're there for entertainment. Different reasoning, different values, different way of thinking about it.
Use that mindset also when it comes to player props and when it comes to season win totals, that sort of thing. If you go through and you listen to, I think it's NBA TV, maybe it's ESPN, I don't know, these programs where they do these NBA previews, and they're, all right, let me invite in an NBA or a team expert from the Bucks or a team expert from the Warriors, and have them on, interview them. At the end, they say, all right, Vegas has the win total as this. Do you think they're going to win more or fewer than that number of games? Almost everyone says over because they just want to find a way to make something happen instead of think about all the ways that it's not going to happen, right? Like they're thinking about all the potential and not all of the things that could go wrong. So, seriously, I listen to so many team previews on just having the TV on as I'm working, right? And it's just like I'm mostly tuning a lot of it out just because it becomes white noise as you work. That's just kind of how I've always worked. But anytime they bring up the win totals, my ears perk up. I'm like, oh, it's going to be under. It's going to be under. I know it. It's going to be under. Over. It's just like 90% of the time to say over. Anyway, I think if you have the mindset to be under, to think about the things that you shouldn't be betting on, the things that could happen that would negatively impact you, you're going to be much, much, much better off. Much better off. That is a good amount of strategy talk for everyone. Good amount of covering the games on a full slate. Looking forward to a big, long weekend of football and sports into the next week. Appreciate everyone tuning in. If you haven't signed up for NBA, as that, I guess we gave a little bit of a tease there, $249 for the NBA package, which is the content and the projections, and I just did a preview pod for both teams. I will tell you this is free. This is free for everyone. LaMelo Ball is going to be great. LaMelo Ball is going to be very, very good. Don't know if he's going to be good enough his rookie season to like win Rookie of the Year, because he's got some things he has to learn how to shoot. But he's good. He's very, very good. Milo, any bold NBA predictions on the spot here?
Oh, bold NBA predictions. You're going to put me on the spot here. I know we've talked Warriors before kind of off here. I saw Warriors to make the playoffs was minus 145, and I thought, whoa, that was something that kind of piqued my interest right away, that if I have futures on them, I thought the same thing. I'm like, what am I looking here? And I think the Rockets to not make the playoffs was like minus 115, and I was like, what do you mean? James Harden's not going to be there in 7 weeks. They're not going to make the playoffs. And those are two that I have definitely jumped in. If you want bold season long, like kind of crazy takes, if you will, I'm going to say that the Sixers make the trade for James Harden, put it together, and come out of the East will be my crazy long shot prediction. And that's kind of where I am right now, all things considered. I think it's going to be it's the deepest I think the league has ever been, or at least in a long time. And I'm sure that means, based on what you're saying, you're going to be buying some of those Panini Prisms, basketball boxes, trying to get you some balls,
The right ball, though. I want the other one.
What, do they make cards for the third one, or he got cut from Detroit, right?
Oh, he's so bad, man. So I've been watching. This is, I guess, we'll throw this at the end for bonus content here, everyone. I've been watching the games for LiAngelo and LaMelo overseas in high school, like the 92-point game. I watched some of that and everything. First of all, the 92-point game, don't just like brush that under the rug and go like, well, whatever. It's like, it doesn't mean anything. Dude was being double covered off the ball for a good part of the game. Sure, he was cherry picking plenty too. And like, that's how you get to that many points. But they threw everyone at him. And last play where he hit that three, like that might be the one thing everyone remembers from the game, a highlight. I didn't remember that there were three guys guarding him on the inbound, and he still got the ball, got the shot up and made it. And it's just, he's a different kind of a player. I know that there are plenty of guys that dominate in high school like that and everything, but you watch him and just, it's like confirmation over confirmation over confirmation. Like it's going to be good, man. But yeah, that's a lot of basketball talk for a football show. We'll get out of here, and good luck to everyone this week. We'll catch you next time. Until then, do awesome things.